I could immediately, just in that word, understand that his marketing wasn't even existing. And I dug a little deeper and found out his business development lead was also his marketing lead. So what do you think's happening? Do you think that the business development person's actually sitting there creating marketing magnets and all the things that marketing does to bring in quality opportunities? Or is he out there just networking and doing account-based marketing and chasing the deal? Because that's what BDs do, right? And so if he had, so like for our example, if we had those three there and we say quality opportunities, and you go, well, why don't we have more opportunities? And that's what we recognize.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week I bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week I'm excited to connect with Michael Buzinski. U.S. Air Force veteran Michael Buzinski is a serial entrepreneur, B2B marketing thought leader, and best-selling author and host of one of the top 15 marketing podcasts in the U.S., the B2B Revenue Engine. As has built two multi-million-dollar ventures and marketed for over 1,200 companies. Dubbed a marketing visionary by the American Market Association, Michael is on a mission to level the playing field for American small and medium businesses by democratizing B2B marketing. Congrats on democratizing B2B marketing, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
So I'm really excited to have you on the show to talk about something that I've been harping on for a long time, which is the problem that so many companies have siloed their marketing and sales and client success departments together, so that from the client's experience side of things, it's like they're getting into a relationship with someone with multiple personality disorder, where marketing feels one way, sales feels one way, and then once they close the deal, they get pushed over to client success, and it's a whole different experience, and it really leads to a lot of friction and turn in problems. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on where the solution is and how you see companies that can make this change and provide a better, more cohesive revenue engine for their businesses.
That is a big question, Carl. I thought we were going to start something light. I'm just kidding. So you were correct. Like this is funny. Let me start with this. In the 1990s, when I started, well, like late 80s, early 90s, when I started in sales and marketing, it was the sales and marketing department. They were one and the same. Client success from the companies that I worked in didn't even exist yet. And then for some reason in the 90s, the two entities within that department kind of became two departments. And then as corporate got more touchy-feely and we started actually paying attention to our clients and stuff like that, this client success management concept came around. And so it was never part of the original design. It was you market them, you sell them, and then you go fulfill it. But there wasn't as much talk as we have today about expanding relationships. Of course, you would talk about retention. How long can we keep them there? I think we got a lot more sophisticated with it and more scientific with it since the 90s. So I think that the answer to your question is that it was never designed. It hasn't been designed to be that way. Therefore, why would it be? Right. Another reason that I know that I see is that in the corporate world, if you share responsibility and things go bad, then you go down with the ship. Right. And so if we can keep our slice of responsibility in this space, then we're protecting our six, right? We're CYA, right? So in the small business world, that's impossible. We don't have that luxury, right? It's not, we don't have 10,000 employees that we're trying to segment responsibilities and keep a spreadsheet all figured out. We're just trying to make sure the clients are happy and they stick around. Right. And so what I've done I've created a framework called the Honeycomb Flywheel that identifies the 6 stages of the client life cycle and then assigned responsibility, like sole responsibility between the sales, marketing, and client success. Because if you don't give a person or a person within it doesn't matter how big your organization, somebody has to be responsible for a thing. Otherwise, nobody's responsible, right? But if we can distill the responsibility, everybody's sharing the responsibility for KPIs. So now you have a KPI as it pertains to your responsibilities, but you're sharing the responsibility for the KPI. Now you're able to integrate outcomes because everybody's looking at the same number going, how do we move that forward? Like say quality opportunities is the easiest one, right? How does marketing increase quality opportunities? How does sales help marketing increase quality opportunities? What can we get from client success and client experiences that feeds more and better quality opportunities?
Yeah, I like that approach because it takes it from what a lot of companies have where they have different KPIs, different groups. So everyone's kind of focusing on what they think is important and what they get judged on, what determines if they have a job next quarter, but they're not all measured the same way and they're not focused in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not accountable for the same things. And so what they do in order to achieve those results is different and not always moving in the same direction as the other departments. And so it's very disjointed. Whereas that model you just described there, where there's a shared KPI and everyone is still doing their things and still have that different departments, but they're all measured using the same KPI, makes it so you can see how the actions of each department is contributing to the overall benefit for the company and for the customers, and not have that finger pointing of, well, where the breakdown happened. Really, our numbers look great for what we're measured on, but that doesn't mean it helps you actually get further down the line working better, and vice versa. So that's got to be like when it comes to making that transition, tricky to make that like change for people. So what's kind of your experience been like applying this to companies you've worked with, and what's been the response?
So the biggest thing to remember is that leadership goes from the top down. So if you want people to work together, you have to have leadership hand down responsibility in a unified way, right? So it's a resetting of the owner's mindset, right? So a lot of founders have been told, hey, I've got it. My quality opportunities is my marketing department's job, right? And my win rate, right? And what we call win volume when it's shared, is my sales team's responsibility. My average client lifetime value is my client success team, right? And how fast each of them do it is up to how fast they can get it done, right? So how often can we get how often can we get more each of those opportunities? How fast can we close a deal? How long does it take to recognize whether or not somebody's going to meet our average client lifetime value, right? And so if what's happened over time though is that we have these vanity metrics. Marketers are really good at it. Salespeople are really good at it. And guess what? Client success teams, they're marketing and salespeople. They're just doing post-sale marketing, right? It's all marketing when it's all said and done. Just everybody know that. But you have all this slew of KPIs or key performance indicators that are being fed up the chain, which is fine for the department. But the owner is now looking at going, oh, that's important. So I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was working with a commercial construction gentleman, right? And he's like, we've got to reorganize our KPIs and try to figure out what our focus is and all this other stuff. And he kept saying chasing business. And these accounts we're trying to chase and the business we're trying to chase. And I'm like, wait a second. Why are you chasing? Why aren't you attracting? I could immediately, just in that word, understand that his marketing wasn't even existing. And I dug a little deeper and found out his business development lead was also his marketing lead. So what do you think's happening? Do you think that the business development person's actually sitting there creating marketing magnets and all the things that marketing does to bring in quality opportunities? Or is he out there just networking and doing account-based marketing and chasing the deal? Because that's what BDs do, right? And so if he had, so like for our example, if we had those three there and we say quality opportunities, and you go, well, why don't we have more opportunities? And that's what we recognize. You don't have enough opportunities. So he was telling me, he's like, we're not closing up deals because we don't have enough at bats. Why don't you have enough at bats? Well, there's only so much bandwidth a business development person can do. Why isn't it getting fed? Now we have a shared KPI, right? Quality opportunities, a shared KPI between business development and marketing. If your marketing is not feeding it, because you don't have marketing in this case, there's nothing there. You are always going to start the day behind because you have nothing to start with.
Yeah, I can see how someone, especially with how many different KPIs there can be between three different departments, and how the overload of data just makes your brain turn off and your eyes glaze over when you see these dashboards that are like, they look really cool, they have lots of colors and numbers, but when you try and actually understand anything useful from it, your brain just goes, this is taking me more than 3 seconds to process. I'm just going to zone out and start thinking about lunch now. Cool. Let me know when an alert happens, that can distract me from this. I don't have to think very hard. And then you wonder, like, all this data, but it's not actually helping the business at all because you don't know where the real breakdown is in the whole slew of numbers coming from all different departments. But when you have that single KPI that you mentioned, where you can say, okay, we're not getting this from enough sales opportunities, and you can just look, okay, how the KPI is being affected by marketing, and realize there's no inbound marketing, you're only doing the BD stuff, then it's very easy to tell from one metric that spans all three departments where the breakdown is happening and what the next steps need to be to fix it, versus trying to wade through this all the vanity metrics and the kind of miasma of numbers and spreadsheets and charts that people get inundated with from all the text up like tools that claim they'll be the magic bullet for these problems. And really it's just, you don't have a marketing department. Get a marketing department that works.
So, I mean literally, so I introduced him to a sales, he was going to hire another sales lead. And I'm like, all right, so that's great. What are they going to work on? Well, he's going to, our offer and all this other stuff. So it's like, yeah, but if you don't have marketing to feed that offer too, what is he's going to be splitting his attention between marketing and sales. And if you're a sales development person, what are you going to focus on? What you love to do, business development. That's what you know to do. It's what comes natural to you. If you're a marketer and you have both of those responsibilities, what are you going to do? Marketing. You're going to basically spend 80% of your time trying to get people to come to you, and then spend the other 20% trying to close them. Where a BD is going to go out and look for the business to close and spend maybe 20% making a couple of brochures that you can hand out while they're doing BD. They're not actually going to do any marketing, right? But now on the other side, like what you're saying is like understanding like, hey, you don't have quality opportunities, you have a marketing problem, right? Just as much as if you don't have enough win volume, you have a sales problem. And it flips, right? So now we can take a look at the other KPI and go, well, do we have enough? Are we getting enough at bats? Yeah, we're getting enough at bats. So our win rate is affecting our win volume, right? And so now it's like, okay, now we can look between the two, right? Because we can say, okay, this is a marketing and sales issue, but that doesn't mean we can't go over to the client success and go, why aren't we getting enough of these opportunities? And client success says, well, because we're losing people because you keep selling X, Y, and Z, and we're trying to give them A, B, and C. Oh, so we have a messaging problem. We didn't go into any other KPIs to find out what the problem was, and we only had to talk to 3 people. Right?
Yeah, and that's way more agile and adaptable, and takes way less brain power to figure out than what most companies have, especially if as they get bigger and bigger and there are more and more people involved, and they have more and more complicated tech stacks and all these other like vanity metrics and stuff, the pace or the ability to identify problems and adapt to them takes so long that often by the time they figure out what the first problem is and they try and apply a solution, and the solution's already out of date because the game's changed at that point. So it's really, you're basically playing catch up forever, and because you're stuck in meetings or trying to figure out exactly what the problem is, and it just takes way too long. So yeah,
then you have your bandwidth though.
Yeah.
So yeah, on the enterprise side, everything's moving too slow because you have to it's got to go through all of the bureaucracy. On the back side of that, on the small business side, you don't have enough resources to dig through all of those KPIs to figure out which one is the one. And it's usually not one, right? That for quality opportunities, we'll just use that one as an example because we're talking about it. That is fed by so many other KPIs. Right? So are you going to sit there with the owner and sit there and talk about every single one of them? No, you don't have the time to do that. The owner doesn't have the bandwidth to do that, nor should they be asked to do that. That is the marketing department's problem, right? It's a marketing problem. They own it. Now it's their responsibility to get feedback from the other two and collaborate with the other two departments to make that happen. Now, this is the catch. In a small business, sometimes they are the same person, and sometimes they're the owner. And that problem right there is fixed by adding, not subtracting. If you're the owner and you're doing founder-led and founder-dependent revenue engine, so you're marketing, you're the main gear in your marketing, on your marketing team. You're the one that comes up with the ideas. You're the one, maybe you're even the one that's making the content that goes out. Maybe you're the one that's deciding where to do the advertising and doing the copy. Maybe you're the one that's the only one. I was working with a CPA firm, 9.5 million annual revenue. And the owner, one of the co-owners, but CEO, was the only salesperson and the marketing director. Do you think he has bandwidth to work with the marketing director? That he had a marketing director, but he was the CMO. He was wearing the CMO hat, right? And so it's like he's like, well, why can't I get past this $10 million mark? Because you don't have enough people to make it happen. You're working on. They also didn't have a client success team. So now you are fighting the bleeding clients out the back end, and you're trying to keep up with churn by bringing in new clients in the front end. And you're the bottleneck.
Yeah.
Right? So you either have too few people, meaning that you don't have enough bandwidth, or you have too many people not working together. Those are your two problems. Right? So both of them are mindset, because he's sitting there going, I'm the best salesperson. Of course you are. We as owners are always going to sell our stuff better than anybody else. That's okay. Feed that to your business development. Give them as much and expect 80% at best back. Okay. Now,
it frees up all that time to let you do other stuff, and that 80% is going to be let you do way more than they could. You're giving your 100% is going to be way less than like three people giving the 80% of what you can give. But now you have this time to do what you actually need to do as a co-founder, and then you can also do the same thing with marketing. Yeah, maybe the marketing's only 80%, but you have 5 people doing that. Right. And now you can like sleep at night and see your family and go to the gym and not be burnt out and freaking out all the time because everything has to go through you, and you're trying to wear 5 different hats, and your doctor's telling you need to take some like more heart medication because your hypertension's off the roof. Yeah, the 9.5 million, and it's only one guy doing all those things, and
yeah, and this is the problem. When the owner sells, they can sell whatever they want. When a BDR sells or a sales rep sells, they only can sell what they're told they can sell. So as an owner, we have a higher close rate because we can fudge the numbers by making things however we need to close the business. The problem with that is now fulfillment has to guess what you sold. And that was their problem. And because they didn't have a client success team, they had their CPAs were also their account managers. So the COO was a co-founder, the wife of the CEO. When things went wrong with an account, the first person who got called was the COO. Why? Because there was nobody between the COO and the actual work being done. So what does that do for the COO? Now they're taking every single call because there's nobody between the two, right? You don't have an account manager to make sure that the relationship between fulfillment, the CPA, and the client is being handled correctly, right? Now it's 65 CPAs. Okay. 65 CPAs, they're all their own account managers. Now, what continuity do you have there? So you have a sales, you have a CEO that's selling whatever he needs to sell to get people in the door because he's trying to stay ahead of the retention, and he has got a retention problem. So his client lifetime value is probably starting to shrink because with retention goes a lower average client lifetime value. So if I was looking at the 3, I'm going, okay, I'm selling enough. I've got enough opportunities, but my CLV is going, like maybe we should look at what that looks like. Holy cow, we're losing these guys in a year and a half. We should be keeping them for 2 to 3 years. So why not wait? Now you talk to the COO and she's like, yeah, this sucks because I have to guess what he is because they're guessing what he sold, right? And I'm like, so if you had somebody in between you and the actual fulfillment and the client, your calls would be faster. Why? Because the piss and vinegar effect. When you're pissed, when you call somebody, right? You call in a call center. How many times you're like the first person you talk to them for like a half an hour and they're like, thank you very much for sharing your frustration. I'm very sorry, blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to help you. I'm going to have to hand you off to my supervisor. So you go to your supervisor and you start all over again. Why do they have you start all over again? They're getting the piss and vinegar out of you. So by the time they get to a point where it's like, hey, is there a low-level solution? Let's get it taken care of. But by the time they get to a decision maker that maybe has a high-level solution, you can get to the solution much faster because you're out of piss and vinegar. So as a COO, you're the only one getting it. You are wasting your time. God forbid you are the CEO and COO of your own company. So now you're sitting here trying to squeeze blood out of a tournament on the sales side and then trying to make up for the fact that you haven't productized your service on the service side so that they don't churn. All from one KPI, your average client lifetime revenue.
That is an awesome case study. Thank you so much for connecting with me today, Michael. We could talk all day about this, but I got to end the show now. This is so awesome. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast as much as I did, please leave a comment, and subscribe. If you want to connect with myself or Michael, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.